In today's episode, we delve into the chilling tale of David Simelane, a man whose actions have left an indelible mark on the history of Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland. Born in 1956, David Simelane's life took a sinister turn that would lead him down a path of unimaginable horror. Raised in the remote Simelane homestead by his aunt, David's early life was marked by a nomadic existence. Despite showing academic promise, he chose to abandon his education after the 10th grade, opted instead to spend nights in the wilderness and his days tending to family's cattle and crops. David's violent tendencies emerged at an early age. At the tender age of 19, he was arrested for stabbing his girlfriend, an act that marked the beginning of a criminal record that included charges of indecent assault, robbery, and burglary. An ex-girlfriend once described him as a man with a subtle violence that he struggled to suppress. The 90s saw David arrested once again, this time for rape and robbery. Despite his denial of the rape charge, he was found guilty and sentenced to 6 years in prison. This experience seemed to have triggered a change in David. He developed a deep-seated hatred for women, believing he had been falsely accused. Upon his release in 1998, David embarked on a horrifying mission of revenge. His targets, innocent women and children. His reign of terror spanned from the late 1990s to 2001, claiming the lives of approximately 40 victims. Among his victims was 26-year-old Samantha Ngobese, a law graduate with dreams of working at the High Court. Her life was tragically cut short after a chance encounter at a bus stop with a man who introduced himself as Tabiso. Lured by the promise of a well-paying job, Samantha was never seen again. Around the same time, a preschool teacher named Fikile and her 1-year-old daughter Lindo also disappeared. Fikile's husband, Simon, was left in a state of despair, his search for his wife and daughter proving fruitless. The grim discovery of 2 women and the baby's decomposing bodies near Eagle's Nest Farm in Malkens marked a chilling climax to this tale. Simon was able to identify his wife and daughter among the victims, their bodies bearing the horrifying marks of their final moments. Join us as we continue to delve deeper into the life and crimes of David Thabo Simelane, a man whose actions have cast a long dark shadow over Eswatini. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more spine-chilling stories. In a chilling series of events, a human skull was discovered in a KFC-branded bag just days later in the same vicinity. The grim discovery didn't stop there. On April 10, 6 skeletons and a decomposing body were found, all within a stone's throw from each other, escalating the death count to 11. The police were on high alert, urging the public to exercise caution and remain indoors after dark. The initial bodies were discovered in and around the vast Usutu forest in Malkens, a sprawling man-made forest spanning over 160,000 acres. The investigation was spearheaded by 2 of the nation's top officers. They appealed to the public for assistance, even going as far as publishing their personal cell numbers in the newspaper. The search was intensified with the deployment of over 200 police officers and soldiers in the Eagle's Nest Farm area. The grim discovery continued with an additional set of remains in varying stages of decomposition, pushing the death toll to 24. As the news of murders spread nationwide, the police were inundated with reports of missing women, some of whom had been missing for over 16 months. Among the victims were Cindy and Dombi, to name a few. The Deputy Police Commissioner at the time expressed shock, his remarks stating, "Never in the history of our country have we experienced such killings." A reward of 50,000, which is equivalent to about $3,000 was offered for information leading to the arrest and prosecution of the culprit. The police retraced the final steps of the victims based on the last sightings of the missing women and the locations of their bodies. Most of them were last seen in or were known to be traveling to Malkens or Manzini, towns frequented by job seekers in Eswatini. The police tried to track down the last known association of the victims. Despite various names being thrown around, one fact was clear: the murderer or murderers were exploiting women desperate for jobs and money. Several victims were last seen with a man who had promised them employment at a garage, a parking plant, or a police station. Given the sheer number of victims, some police officers suspected they were dealing with multiple murderers. The Swazi police enlisted the help of South African police, who brought in specialists in forensics, investigative psychologists, and profilers. The South African police also assisted in identifying the bodies using DNA profiling and facial reconstruction, expertise that was not available in Eswatini at the time. As the death toll rose to approximately 28 women and children, the public's reaction was one of immense sympathy. Religious groups prayed, women marched, demanding that the killer be found. During a prayer service at the National Soccer Stadium during the Easter festival, the Queen Mother, co-ruler of Eswatini, implored the nation to cooperate with the police to find those responsible for the murders. She urged Christians to pray for the country, stating that it was clear that the devil's demons had wreaked havoc. A Zionist Christian prophet also offered his help, vowing to assemble a team to use divine powers to aid in the investigation. He declared, "This is a war everyone should come together and work towards getting the killers." On the 25th of April 2001, a breakthrough came when the husband of a missing woman identified a suspect at a supermarket in Hlangano, a city south of Eswatini. The police were alerted and an arrest was made. The man in custody was 43-year-old David Simelane. David was taken to the station by the local police, who then called in the investigative team. According to investigators, David confessed to the crimes without any coercion. In his confession, David admitted to murdering 32 women and 3 babies. He revealed that he lured women into the forest, tied them up, sexually assaulted them, and then strangled or stabbed them with his bare hands if they resisted too strongly. He also admitted to beheading many of them either before or after death. He often stole money and valuables from his victims to fund his gambling habit. When asked about his motive for the murders, he stated that it was revenge against women due to an alleged false rape charge from 1991 for which he served time. He maintained that he robbed the victim but did not rape her. In his second written confession from May 2001, he stated, "I then told myself that I will revenge to any woman if the chance avails itself." Upon hearing of David's arrest, the public speculated that he must be very good looking. How else could he have lured so many women to their deaths? They wondered. However, when the public finally saw him, they were disappointed. One Swazi writer described him as having a broad forehead, average-sized, bloodshot eyes, an apology for a nose, and a mouth that must have been carved with a pencil knife, David was far from handsome. In June, the police took David out of the holding cell to lead them to more bodies. Much of this was videotaped, including when he was read his rights and told that what he showed them could be used against him in court. Some of the locations where he had dumped the bodies were so remote that authorities had to enlist the help of helicopters. The police found a total of 45 bodies, including the bodies of 4 babies. Once all the bodies were recovered, the next step was to identify his victims. Since most of the bodies had decomposed, the police used the victims' clothing as a means of identification. They held an identification parade, inviting friends and family of David's victims to match pieces of clothing to those that belonged to their loved ones. Some of the clothing had been found near the bodies, and some of it had been found in possession of one of David's girlfriends. As we continue to look deeper into this case, in one of the videos, David, whose actions were captured on tape, the footage shows him assisting the police and the victims' families in identifying the personal belongings of each woman and child involved. The video reveals a disturbing scene where items of clothing are not treated with care. The police are seen sifting through plastic bags, old suitcases, and bundles tied with white string. The families were able to recognize various items, including bras, dresses, baby clothes, and shoes. In a shocking twist, David removes his own shirt, claiming it belonged to one of the victims, whose family was present during the ordeal. In an unsettling turn of events, David is seen explaining to the victims' families how he met and ended the lives of their loved ones. During his trial, 2 written confessions were presented, one penned the day after his arrest and another 12 days later before different magistrates. These confessions, translated into English, contained a list of victims, some of whom were unnamed or only identified by their last names. Initially charged with 35 counts of murder, the charges were later reduced to 34, 4 years into his trial, when it was discovered that 2 victims were in fact the same person. Throughout this period, there were several incidents suggesting that David might not have been mentally or physically fit for trial. Reports surfaced of a hunger strike, an overdose, a stroke, self-harm, and even attempted suicide. In 2004, David was admitted to the Mbabane Government Hospital in the capital city, where he remained unconscious for 5 days. His health was a recurring issue, with reports of severe illness in 2001 and 2004, leading to the speculation that he was HIV positive. Despite these incidents, a psychiatric evaluation deemed him fit to stand trial. The trial finally commenced in 2006 for 5 years after his arrest. Due to delays in collecting DNA evidence, a total of 83 witnesses testified against him. His defense was initially led by attorney Lucky Howe, who was later replaced by criminal attorney Mududuzi Mabila. David, through his lawyer, denied confessing to his crimes, alleging that his confession was coerced under the threat of death. He claimed that he was suffocated by the police and warned of dire consequences if he did not comply. On March 23, 2011, David was found guilty of 28 counts of murder. Judge Jacobus Annandale, in his 232 verdict, stated that the identification of personal belongings linked to the missing relatives found either near the human remains or at locations David led the police to confirmed that the deceased were indeed the missing relatives. The judge also suggested that David's motive was revenge for sexual assault charge he claimed was false. He was sentenced to death by hanging. David appealed the sentence to the Supreme Court in 2011. While the court acknowledged the excessive length of the trial, the death sentence was upheld. However, no executions have been carried out in Eswatini since 1983, so David remains in custody. His aunt claims that he has found faith in prison and now preaches to his fellow inmates. Thank you for watching Afroforensics. Please don't forget to share, don't forget to like, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.